Hello students, we welcome you to yet another session of verbal ability today. We'll be discussing on subject-verb agreement and pronoun agreement in the session. Today's session is in continuation with the previous session on subject-verb agreement and pronoun agreement. As you must understand that it is not sufficient to know the concepts, it is equally important to understand and learn the approaches of mastering the questions. So in today's session, apart from having a clear understanding of concepts, we would also be understanding different approaches for solving the questions in your competitive examinations. So we'll be first discussing on subject-verb agreement, and towards the second half of the session we would start with pronoun agreement. So here is the agenda of the first half of the session. We will be starting with subject-verb agreement, the introduction to it, sample questions picked up from a few competitive examinations, and then conceptual learning. Today's session has been designed in such a manner that we are not covering the very basics of subject-verb agreement. We'll have a discussion on a little higher level questions, and similarly conceptual training would also take place. So just to revise, what is subject-verb agreement? Subject-verb agreement is an agreement between the subject and the verb form. As we know, subject is the doer of the action, somebody who's performing the action. Verb, on the other hand, is the action itself. So the basic rule of subject-verb agreement says that the subject and the verb of a sentence should match. They should agree with each other. Now, what does that mean? That basically implies that if you have a singular subject, it should be followed by a singular verb, and a plural subject should be followed by a plural verb form. Now here are some examples. Try and answer the questions one after another. Harry and Jack is or are studying together. As you know, the answer should be are here. Since there are compound subjects in the sentence, that would lead to a plural verb form being the answer. Jill as well as his friends is or are watching the movie. This one we've done in the class earlier. So the answer should be is here and not are. So those of you who don't remember the concept, I'm sure must have thought about are as the answer. Let us see why is the correct answer. Jill as well as his friends is watching the movie. Since the subject of the action is Jill, it's not his friends. And as well as we remember, is just an additive over the main subject. Main subject of the action is Jill. Professor Brown, accompanied by students, was or were in the lab. The answer for the question here should be was. Since the subject of the action is Professor Brown, it's not Professor Brown and his students. Had the statement been Professor Brown and his students, answer would have been different. But here, as it says, Professor Brown, accompanied by students, was or were in the lab. Now, as we know, apart from accompanied by, besides, as well as, along with, in addition to, are all additive phrases, which do not make any difference to the main subject of the sentence. The bunch of flowers look or looks beautiful. The answer here should be in agreement with the bunch of flowers. Mind it, the subject is not flowers here. The subject is the bunch of flowers. And since, as we have learned earlier, bunch is a collective noun. A collective noun would be treated as a singular subject. So the bunch of flowers looks beautiful. You guessed it right. The flowers of the bunch look or looks beautiful. Now try and understand this one. We are not referring to bunch anymore. The reference is being made to flowers individually. Though they are a part of the same bunch, but we are referring to the flowers. So the flowers of the bunch look beautiful, as contrary to the previous statement. Now we have some sample questions coming up for practice. They have been picked up from different competitive exams conducted for management like CAT, GRE, GMAT, and even undergraduate level. Plus, we've picked up a few questions from law entrances also. The level of difficulty has been deliberately kept high. Let us discuss. Question number 1. The information presented in the recent reports indicate that violent times lie ahead for those who have invested only in Nasdaq stocks. Now, as you can see, a part of the sentence is underlined. Now, here are 5 choices which are suggesting 5 different versions of rewriting the sentence. You should read all the choices and you should mark the answer choice that you feel is the most appropriate in terms of the error of subject-verb agreement. Now, you should always remember that choice A is always a reiteration of what is stated in the underlined part. So, in order to save time, you can avoid reading A. When you've read the question, you can directly start analyzing choice B onwards. If none of the choices go and if you feel the statement is correct as it is, you can mark choice A as the answer. Let us analyze the question. The information presented in the recent reports. Now, the subject of the sentence here is the information. Now, since we know the information is always treated as a singular unit, information is considered together as one unit. So, information would have, following the rule of subject-verb agreement, a plural verb, that is, the information indicates. It is wrong to say the information indicate. Now, once you've read this part, you can start eliminating the choices one by one. Let us go with the approach of elimination, starting with choice A. Indicate. As we have seen that the subject is the information, which should have a singular verb that would be indicates. So, choice A is a problematic statement. A can be ruled out. Same problem, if you can notice, lies with B and C also. Choice D and choice E are both giving you the same form, which is indicates. Now we should read statement D and statement E further to identify that which one is the correct answer choice or which one is the most appropriate answer choice between the two. Let us start with the statement in light of choice D. The information presented in the recent reports indicates, since the subject is information, indicates goes perfectly alright, that violent times lie ahead for those who have invested only in Nasdaq stocks. After reading D, it sounds good. But as we know, we should analyze the other choice also. That might be a little better choice, you never know. You should always do the relative analysis of the choices. Remember, in competitive examinations, there is nothing like an absolutely right answer choice or absolutely wrong answer choice. We are always supposed to identify the choice that is the most appropriate or the choice that is best among the available options. So, let us analyze choice E now. Indicates is fine. That violent times are laying ahead for those who've invested only in Nasdaq stocks. Now we can see the error. Violent times are laying ahead. That changes the meaning. That changes the sentence. So, choice D was a better answer choice over E, and D is definitely the best choice available among all the options. Let us see the explanation for the question now. The problem, as we could see, was related to subject-verb incongruity. The underscored portion of the sentence lacks conscience. ABC, as we saw, could be eliminated because of the wrong usage of the verb indicate. E is wrong because using lay instead of lie. So, the correct answer, as we could see, was choice D, the best answer choice. We'll come to sample question 2 now. Each of the dramas were great and the choice for the best one among all 3 was very difficult indeed. Let us look at the choices. So same thing has to be done here. We'll analyze all the choices. We'll identify which one is relatively the best answer choice. Let us understand the concept first. Each of the dramas were great. As we have discussed in the previous sessions, each of the dramas, when you say each, you are referring to a singular person. The reference is not being made to dramas here, the reference is being made to each, which is singular. So each should always take a singular verb form coming along with it. Were great is wrong. Let us see which all choices can be eliminated on this ground. Choice A gives you were great, which is wrong. Same goes with choice C and E also. C and E, if you could notice, are giving you the same problematic statement. Each of the dramas were great, and same happens with E. So these three choices, A, C and E, can be ruled out. We are left with choice B and choice D now. We should analyze these two now, starting with B first. Each of the dramas was great, and choosing the best one among the three was very difficult indeed. B sounds good. Let us check D now. Each of the dramas was great, and choosing the best one between the three was very difficult indeed. Could you identify the error? Yes, the error is lying with the use of the word between. We'll understand the use of between in detail in conjunctions, but for now it is sufficient to understand that between is used for connecting two nouns. When you are referring to more than two, it should be among. Since we are referring to three options, so in that case among should be used and not between. So choice B is the answer. That is the most appropriate choice here. Now the explanation. Each is singular. It should begin with was rather than were. Answer choices A, C, E can therefore be eliminated. Answer choice D differs from B because D uses between, and the correct answer choice should use among. Between is used only when one is talking about two items. In case of three or more, we should use among. So the answer should be choice B here. Another practice question coming up for you. The Samuel Harrison Patterson 324 bill requires that a bank disclose to their customers how long they will delay access to funds from deposited checks. Let us see the choice. Let us try and identify what is the error. The Samuel Harrison Patterson 324 bill requires that a bank disclose to their customers. First problem, if you could notice, is their customers. Since you are referring to a bank which is singular, you cannot use a personal plural pronoun like their customers. As we have learnt in the previous session on pronouns, that when the reference is being made to a singular noun, the pronoun should also be singular. So their customers, the choices which are using their customers will be ruled out. Let us see which all choices are out. Choice A, their customers. Same problem with choice B, again their customers. So we are left with choice C, D and E now. Let us see further what is the other error with the choices. C part now. The Samuel Harrison Patterson 324 bill requires that a bank disclose to its customers sounds good, how long it will delay access to funds from deposited checks. Appears alright. Let us analyze the other two choices now. D part. This bill requires a bank that it should disclose to its customers how long it will delay access to funds from a deposited check. Now here is another problem based on parallelism. As we have done parallelism in the earlier session, funds and check lacks in synchronization. Since we are referring to funds, the reference should again be made to checks and not check. So choice D is ruled out. E part, that banks disclose to customers how long access to funds from their deposited check is to be delayed. Same problem here, again parallelism. Funds and check don't go together. You can either say fund and check, or you should say funds and checks. So choice C is the best answer choice among the available options. Let us read out the explanation. In A and B, as we saw, the plural pronoun there and they don't agree with the singular noun bank. B, like D and E, illogically shifts the plural customers and funds to the singular check, as if the customers were jointly depositing only one check. That's ridiculous. In D, requires a bank that it should is grammatically wrong. Requires that a bank is appropriate idiom. In E part, the use of passive construction is to be delayed is less informative than the active voice, because the passive does not explicitly identify the bank as the agent responsible for the delay. So the correct answer here is choice C. So before we continue with further questions on subject verb agreement, we should once see the concepts and the higher level concepts again. So agreement, as we have discussed, is the synchronization between the subject and the verb. If there is a singular subject, the verb form should be singular, and if there is a plural subject, the verb form should also be in the plural form. The relevance of this section, subject verb agreement, for the competitive exams, depending on examination to examination that you are preparing for, on an average you can find some 20 to 25% questions of English grammar appearing from this area. The number of questions may vary. On an average, in management entrance examinations like in CAT, in FMS, ZAT and all, you can easily find some 3 to 5 questions appearing on this section. In a paper like GMAT, this holds a lot of importance. So the first concept for subject verb agreement, which is related to the use of compound subjects. You, he and I is, am, are planning to schedule a meet on the coming weekend. Can you try and attempt the question? What should be the answer? Since we know you, he and I are compound subjects, compound subjects means 2 or more than 2 subjects clubbed together. They take plural form. So you, he and I are plural subjects. Hence the answer should be plural here, which is are. Second concept, the subject and verb may be separated by an accompanying phrase without changing the agreement. Let us see how. As you've seen this question earlier, Jill as well as his friends is or are watching the movie. As we know, the subject of the sentence is Jill, it is not his friend. We've been emphasizing on this fact again and again, that if you change the sentence to Jill and his friends, the answer would become are. But right now, since as well as is only an additive phrase, which is not leading to creation of any change in the sentence. Second sentence coming up. Professor Brown, accompanied by students, was or were in the lab. Subject of the sentence is Professor Brown. It is not his students, and it is not Professor Brown and his students. Subject is singular, so the answer should be was here. He as well as I. Subject of the sentence is he, which is singular. He is going to church today. He as well as I is going to church today again. Concept 3 now under subject verb agreement. The use of collective nouns. Now what is a collective noun? Just to revise, a collective noun is a group of entities, a group of identities, be it for a group of persons or things, which is referred together as a single unit. For an example, when you say bouquet, so you are not referring to flowers individually, you are referring to bouquet as one unit. Similarly, herd, group, staff, faculty, society, family, archipelago Archipelago. Remember what is archipelago? Archipelago is a group of islands. So all of them are some examples of collective nouns which are referred together as a singular unit. So collective nouns are referred as a singular entity, and when they act in a collective fashion or represent one group. Examples. The first one, the staff work or works hard on the project. What do you think should be the answer? Let us discuss. Since the subject of the sentence is staff here, which is singular, which acts as one unit, you aren't referring to the members of the staff individually. You are talking about staff as one unit. So since we know a singular subject should always have S in the verb form, so the answer would be the staff works hard on the project. The committee has or have taken the decision unanimously. Now unanimity is basically consensus, all people agreeing to the point. So since committee is singular, so committee has taken the decision unanimously. The committee is or are fighting over the bylaws amendment bill. Now this one is a little different. Since here the committee is not being referred as one unit, you are referring to committee as being divided in two parts. There are some people who are agreeing, there are some people who are not agreeing. So whenever there is any lack of consensus existing in the collective noun, that takes a plural form, you should always remember. So the answer should be the committee are fighting over the bylaws amendment bill. Concept 4 now, the rule of proximity. Proximity is nearness or closeness. So this particular rule of proximity applies to a few correlative conjunctions like either or, neither nor, or nor, etc. Let us understand what is this rule of proximity. When there are two subjects which are joined by these conjunctions, the verb would agree with the subject that is closer to it. Let us understand it further with the help of this illustrative example. Either the commander or his juniors is or are taking in charge. Now as we can see, there are two subjects in the sentence. One is the commander, the other one is juniors. Is or are taking is the verb. Is or are precisely is the auxiliary verb. Taking is the main verb form. Now since there are two subjects, your correct verb answer will be decided by the noun that is closer to the verb. The subject that is closer to the verb form here is juniors. Now since juniors is plural, your answer will be decided by that only. So answer is are. Either my friends or I am joining the course. The closer subject is I am joining the course. Neither you nor Jack complete or completes the assignment on time. Now again there are two subjects, but as we know, as in the case of either or, here also the same rule has to apply, neither nor. So two subjects are you and Jack. The one that is closer to the verb form, Jack, will decide the answer. So Jack completes the assignment on time. Concept 5 coming in picture now, the use of indefinite pronouns. As we have learnt in detail in the previous session that indefinite pronouns, unlike personal pronouns, don't refer to a particular identity, don't refer to a particular being. They define a broad category which are open for everybody. Either of the staff members has or have completed the project work. What do you think should be the answer? Now, either of the staff members. We are not referring to staff members together. We are referring to one person at a time. That means out of two persons, one is being referred, only one has completed the project. So, in case of any indefinite pronoun, you should always keep in mind the verb would always be singular. Neither of the students is or are intelligent. Neither. Neither again refers to one person. Remember, the answer would have been different had you said both the students are not intelligent. Here it says neither. That means referring to one person at a time. So neither of the students is intelligent. Many an apple has or have fallen by October. A little tricky, I believe. Many an apple. Had the sentence been many apples, you would definitely go with the plural answer. Many apples have. But you should remember, many an apple. When you say many a or many an, that makes it an indefinite pronoun. And an indefinite pronoun should always have a singular form coming after that. So some of the commonly used indefinite pronouns are either, neither, each, everybody, everyone, somebody, many a, anyone, anything, whatever, whoever, etc. Concept 6 coming now. Since we learnt about the singular rule of indefinite pronouns, here are a few exceptions of indefinite pronouns. These are a few indefinite pronouns which can be either singular or plural depending on the context in which they are used in. For an example, some of the sugar is or are contaminated. Now, after reading some, you cannot outrightly mark the answer as is or are. You should try and identify what noun is following some. Let us see. Some of the sugar is or are contaminated. Now, the noun here, the subject of the sentence here is sugar. Sugar is an uncountable noun. Sugar can be measured, but it cannot be counted. You cannot have different numbers of sugar, though it can be measured. So, in that case, the answer would be singular. Some of the sugar is contaminated. Some of the people. Now, what should be the answer? Some of the people is or are voting for the secular government. In contrast to the previous sentence, sugar, here people is a countable noun. You can always count how many people are there. 5, 10, 20, 1,000. You can always count the number. So here, when you have a countable noun, it would take a plural verb form with it. That would be some of the people are voting for the secular government. Most of the apples is or are rotten. Here, we are referring to a group of apples. Out of those apples, most of them are rotten. This one, most of the apple is or are rotten. Can you understand the difference between the two sentences? Did you notice? In the first sentence, we were referring to many apples. Most of them were rotten. Here in this sentence, most of the apple is or are rotten. We are referring to only one apple only. And most of the part of that particular apple is rotten. Answer should be choice 1 here, which is. Now a few pronouns which are always used plural. We talked about a few indefinite pronouns like many, either, neither, everybody, everyone, which are always singular. Now here we have a few plural pronouns coming up. Pronouns like both, several, few, many, others, etc. are always used plural. Both Jack and Harry are planning to attend the party tonight. As you can notice, two things here. One is the use of both, which is always plural, and the use of and, which is making it a compound subject. So answer should be are here. Many tears have to fall after the wars. Had it been many a, in that case, as you remember, it was an indefinite pronoun and hence it would have taken a singular verb form. Here, many tears makes it plural, so many tears have to. Yes, you can notice the change here. Many a tear refers to one tear at a time. So, it is using indefinite pronoun. After learning subject-verb agreement in detail, we'll move on to the next area, which is supposed to be a part of the agenda of the discussion today. That is pronoun agreement. So, pronouns. Pronouns are the words which replace nouns. Some of the commonly used pronouns are he, she, it, they, we, us, etc. Pronoun agreement basically implies that there should be a congruity or a synchronization between the noun and the pronoun that it refers to. Now, we'll have a few practice questions coming up which have been taken from various competitive examinations. Let us try and solve them. The first question coming up. The Navy used the nuclear submarine accident off the coast of North Dakota to show that everyone must be held responsible for their actions. Now we have the choices coming up. So we should try and focus on the underlined part first. To show that everyone must be held responsible for their actions. Could you notice the error? Since the subject is everyone here, which is an indefinite pronoun, so it is always treated as a singular unit. So everyone cannot have their actions following it. It should be everyone followed by his or her actions. Let us see which all choices can be ruled out here. Choice A is ruled out since it says their actions. Same is the problem lying with choice B. Choice C is also suggesting the same. Now we are left with choice D and choice E. Let us see which one is the better answer choice. We would start reading D first. The Navy used the nuclear submarine accident off the coast of North Dakota to signal how no one should be able to get away with committing acts of terrible negligence. If you read this part in isolation, this may appear alright. But the problem is, this has changed the entire question. You should avoid making many changes in the given format. You as a test taker are just supposed to correct the error that is existing. You should not rephrase the entire sentence. So let us check whether E is a better answer choice or not. To show that everyone must be held responsible for his actions. Now is the correction coming up. The problem was their actions. Since the subject was singular, everyone, it should have his actions following it. The explanation coming up now. Since we know that the pronoun everyone is singular, A, B and C can be eliminated. Now D changes the meaning of the sentence too much by adding a strong emotional judgment and incorrectly uses how. So E emerges as the most appropriate answer choice here. Question number 2 coming up, and you would notice the questions are getting tougher question by question. We the people papers, a strong defense of the United Kingdom Constitution and important as a body of work in political science as well, represents the handiwork of 3 different authors. Let us analyze the choices now. Now, as we know, the subject is we the people papers. That is a plural subject. So your verb form, which is there in the underlined part, should also be a plural verb. And important as a body of work in political science as well, represents, is it right to say? No, it should be represent since you have a plural subject in the beginning. So let us see which all choices can be ruled out here. Choice A is eliminated. Choice C can also be eliminated because that changes it to a gerund form. Choice D can also be ruled out since it makes it an adjective representative of, which is not needed. So we are left with choice B and choice E now. Let us consider the two. We the people papers, a strong defense of United Kingdom Constitution, as well as an important body of work in political science, represent the handiwork of the 3 different authors. Appears all right. Let us check E now. And as political science, an important body of work too represent. If you could notice choice E and compare it to the underlined part, you would see that this changes the meaning of the sentence, which is not needed. Choice B emerges as the best answer choice. Let us see the explanation coming up. Choices A, C, and D contain singular verbs which don't agree in number with the plural subject papers. C employs the present progressive tense, as we saw. It is using a gerund representing. D part, employing the present perfect tense, suggests that the situation of triple authorship is no longer the case. So, choice B emerges as the best answer choice. Question number 3 now. In the minds of many people living in England, before Australia was Australia, it was the antipodes, the opposite pole to civilization, an obscure and unimaginable place that was considered the end of the world. Choices coming up now. Let us look at all the choices, starting with A part. In the minds of many people living in England before Australia was Australia, it was the antipodes. Now you should not confuse that we are using antipodes with it. It refers to Australia. So for Australia, you would definitely use it as a pronoun. A is alright. Let us see what does B say. Before there was Australia. That makes it a little unclear. C part. It was the antipodes that was Australia. No, A was a little better choice over C. D part. Australia was what was the antipodes, makes it grammatically wrong and a bit circuitous also. E part. Australia was what had been known as the antipodes. Using two tenses together, past perfect and the passive construction, which is not needed and making it more confusing. Choice A emerges as the best answer choice here. For A alone makes it clear that the land now known as Australia was considered the antipodes before it was developed. In B, it has no logical referent because the previous clause describes a time when there was no Australia. D is a very wordy choice, uses unnecessary segments and words, with the unnecessary what was and imprecise in suggesting that Australia was considered the antipodes after it became Australia. Same is the problem with E, distorting the meaning of the sentence and too wordy in nature. Choice A emerges as the best answer choice. We'll try and revise the concepts of pronoun agreement now. So pronouns are the words which are used at the place of a noun, and the nouns that they replace are known as antecedents. A pronoun usually refers to something which is already mentioned in the sentence. They are used instead of nouns to prevent repetition of the noun to which they refer. One of the most common pronouns is it. Let us see this example. The flight was late. The flight had been delayed. Why should we use the same noun again when we have the privilege, when we have the liberty of using a pronoun? So pronouns always sound better at the place of noun if they are used in a repetitive order. So it should be the flight was late. It had been delayed. This sounds better because we are not using flight in a repetitive order. The types of pronouns coming up now. Personal pronouns, personal subjective pronouns. A personal pronoun is a pronoun that refers to everything and anything possible. A subjective case pronoun, which is a part of personal pronouns, is that kind of pronoun who replaces doer in the sentence. So a subjective case pronoun is the one who performs the action in the sentence. I, you, he, she, it, we, they, who, etc. Then comes the second category under personal pronouns, which is objective case pronouns. Objective case pronouns replace done upon in the sentence. That means object is the one whom the action has been performed on. Examples are me, you, him, her, it, us, them, whom, etc. Possessive pronouns indicate possession or ownership. Examples are my, your, his, hers, its, ours, theirs, etc. Reflexive pronouns, the pronouns which are used to emphasize on something. The words which end with self or selves. Myself, ourselves, yourself, himself, herself, themselves, etc. So that was about the broad categorization of pronouns. Now we have a few more practice questions coming up for pronoun agreement. Larry and me were studying together. Is it grammatically correct to say? No, this is wrong. Because Larry and me were studying together. The verb of the sentence is studying, and there are two people who are performing this action, which are Larry and me. Now, since these two are performing the action, that means they are the doers. So we need to have a subjective case pronoun instead of using an objective pronoun like me. So the correct sentence should be Larry and I were studying together. Next question coming up. How could she blame you and he for the accident? Is it correct to say so? No, this is wrong. Let us see why. See, the first thing which should be done in such questions is you should identify what is the verb first of all. And then later on you should see that whether we need a doer or done upon for the blank. So the verb in the sentence is blame. Who's blaming? She. So she is the subject. Whom is she blaming? She's blaming you and he. We need objects here. We don't need a subject here. So you can be subject and object both. So it is correct to use you. But it is wrong to say he here. It should be an objective case pronoun. So it should be you and him. The correct sentence would be, how could she blame you and him for the accident? Next sentence coming up. Whom did the teacher admire in the class? Let us see whether it is right or wrong. The verb in the sentence is admire. Who admires? The teacher. So the teacher is the subject. Now what do we need? For whom? We need a subject or an object. We need an object here since the subject is already given. And as we have learnt, whom is the objective case pronoun. So it is correct to say whom. Sentence is right. It doesn't need any correction. Teacher is the subject. Who gifted you the pen? So is it correct to say so? Let us see. The verb here is gift. We are using the past form of the verb gift. And what is being gifted? It is the pen. So that is one object. Who is being gifted the pen? The person is you. So you is also the object. So it is correct to say who gifted you the pen, since who is the doer, the one who's performed the action. It must have been she who called. Let us see whether it is right or wrong. Though it may sound a little grammatically wrong, but the sentence is correct. As we have learnt in the previous session, to be forms. To be forms like been, is, am, are, was, were, will, shall, etc. should always be followed by a subjective case pronoun. So it must have been she is correct. It should not be her. It should be she. So the given sentence is correct. It doesn't need any sort of correction here. To be verbs always take the subjective form. It was I. Another example on the same pattern. Was is again a to be verb. So to be verbs always take the subjective form. So I is the subjective form. Here we have a few more practice questions coming up. You can just have them very quickly. Question number 1. Opposite to the popular belief, war heroes rarely earn their status by acting as if they themselves are invincible. You should include a reflexive pronoun when you want to emphasize on the same thing. But here, as you can notice, there is no emphasis which is being paid on the subject. So the reflexive case pronoun is not needed. So what should be the answer? The answer would be choice E here and none of the other choices. So let us see the explanation. The original version A intends to express a contrary to the fact situation. Choice E is the best answer choice here. One more question coming up. As a baby emerges from the darkness of a womb with a rudimentary sense of vision, it would be rated about 20 on 500. Or legally blind if it were an adult with such vision. So let us see what is wrong with the sentence. As a baby emerges from the darkness of the womb with a rudimentary sense of vision, it would be rated about 20 on 500. What would be rated? A baby? No, we are talking about the vision of the baby. So it is wrong to say it would be rated. It should be replaced by some other word instead of it. Let us see which one is the best answer choice. As we can see in the sentence, the problem with the given statement is it would be rated. Does it refer to the baby? No, it should refer to the sense of vision and not to baby. So the problem with the given statement is it would be rated. It seems as if it is referring to the baby and not to the vision of the baby. So the correct answer would be the one that is using some additional phrase in order to use for the sense of vision. And as you can notice, choice D here uses an additional conjunction. That would be rated about 20 on 500 is the most appropriate answer choice. So choice D emerges as the best answer choice. So here we have come to the end of the session. In today's session, we discussed on higher level practice questions on subject-verb agreement and pronoun agreement. We also took you through different practice questions coming up from different competitive examinations. Hope you will continue practicing on your own, and this journey of practice does not end with this session. We'll continue with further topics on grammar in the coming sessions to come. Thank you.